Hey there, CPO here, and today I'm going to give you an honest review of the Suunto Core All Black, and even more importantly, I'm going to show you how to set it up and how to use it. But the first thing I want to do is just show you the watch on my wrist. I've got pretty small wrists. As you can see, I'm using up almost all of the available band. But I'm used to wearing fairly heavy watches and fairly big and bulky watches. This is a big watch, but it is neither bulky nor heavy. It's actually really lightweight, and for as big as the face is, it's fairly form-fitting. And what I can tell you is my long sleeve shirts and jackets tend to slip easily over the watch, and that's pretty nice because a lot of my bigger watches, everything gets hung up, and so the watch is kind of hanging out. But this has got such a nice slim profile, even though it is on the larger size of a watch, that it works out really well. As you can see, this is the all black version, often referred to as the military version, although I'm not sure there's any official nomenclature with that designator. But anyway, it's the tactical all black sort of military look. And I'll be honest with you, I think it looks really cool. I mean, it's a beautiful watch. The challenge, though, is as tactical as it is a little bit more challenging to see than a standard black on white watch. So this is a reverse display. So it's the blacked out face with the I'll just say white, but the lighter color numbers, a reverse display. And while you can see it nice in this light, one thing I will tell you, number one, a lot of people talk about the fact that somebody mentions it's hard to see, but then they say, no, they can see it just fine. I mean, I've watched a lot of reviews on this watch, and I will admit to you, I'm 40 something, all right? And my eyes aren't what they used to be, especially at night and low light conditions. And I will tell you, it is challenging to see. So if you want to be able to just look at your watch and tell what time it is, regardless of the lighting conditions and regardless of the angle of viewing, this may not be the watch for you. I can tell you that I have a lot of white face watches with the dark numbers that I can see from various angles. This one, I have to have it at an angle where the light reflects just right. As you can see here, this is a fairly realistic representation of how the display can get completely blanked out in certain angles, okay? So you need to know that. Does that kill the usability of the watch? No. It just means that if you're in some weird angle and you want to take a quick look at the time in a traditional watch schema, you might be able to tell the time from this angle. With this particular reverse display or the negative display, you might have to tilt it until you get the light reflected just right. Alternatively, there is a backlight option, but to be honest with you, I find the backlight in low light conditions doesn't help a whole lot. If I have a hard time reading it anyway, pressing the light doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. Now, in pitch black conditions, when it's actually dark out, the light is fantastic. It's just enough light. But in low light, see, I mean, the light is on. It doesn't change the visibility that greatly. But again, if it's pitch black, you'll be able to see the display just fine. It's perfect for that. So let me show you a couple of features, and then we'll get on with how to set this up. First of all, it does have a rotating bezel. It's not a dive watch, which means the bezel will rotate in either direction. It's more for orienteering sort of stuff. It has these really nice buttons. They are checkered. So if you're familiar with watches or guns, you may be familiar with checkering. It's a very familiar feel. They feel like they're aluminum buttons, but very positive feel to them. I really like that. The watch band itself is super flexible and lightweight and soft. And I really like this big, fat, I don't know what this tang is in here. But it really is nice. I like it. And then another nice touch is on the keepers here, they have these little detents that will lock in to the hole, so you can kind of feel when these lock into place. It's kind of hard to show you, but it's got some protrusions that will lock into these slots in the band, which is kind of nice, which means they're not sliding around. They will literally lock into where you put them. So that's a nice touch as well. As far as the display goes, how you would navigate the display, you're using this button here to navigate, and this basically takes you from time mode to altimeter barometer mode, and then to the compass mode. As you can see, I have my particular watch configured to have the backlight on for every button press. That's a menu option you can change. You can have it just set to use the light button, or any button press will enable it. And right now, as I'm getting used to it, particularly as my eyes aren't what they used to be, I've just had the light on at all times. A note with that, though, is, and you will have seen this if you've done any research, in the compass, the light does flash along with the compass. That's perfectly normal. So anyway, there we go. So in the various functions, right, time or altimeter, barometer, or compass, you have another view down here that you can set the view display, and that's this button here. You can change this to various displays. So I've seen a lot of people try and show you in video what these different functions are, and I've seen a lot of people tell you it's the wrong thing. So let me clear this up for you really quick. In the time setting, you have the day and the dates that you can view. You have the seconds. The second countdown is also going around the perimeter, okay? You have the alternate time zone. In my case, it's set to GMT or UDT or Zulu, however you want to call it. Next is the sunrise and sunset time. This is the stopwatch. And this is the countdown timer. And then you can blank it out. Those are all the things that are available to you in the time function. So another cool thing is how this works is in the time function, let's go to our stopwatch. You can see here, now that I'm in stopwatch mode, I get some little lights over here that tell me now this button is active. So let me get to something that doesn't have active buttons. See, these buttons, none of them are active. And then when I go into a menu or a view that has buttons activated, they will light up. So now I know this button is active. That's the start and stop button for the stopwatch. Now there is no split mode in the stopwatch, which may be frustrating for a lot of people who are used to using stopwatches. It's literally on. No other button does anything. Obviously the light does. That'll take you out of the view, and then this will stop it. Now that I've stopped it, I don't know if you can see here. There you go. This button is now activated, and you can see on the display there. If you hold that, that's the reset button. So again, it's literally on, off, hold to reset. And that's it. That's all you get out of the stopwatch. No split timing there. The countdown timer, same thing. Active button starts the countdown. That's all you get. All right, so next we're going to look at the altimeter barometer mode. Now it's either one or the other. You're either in altimeter mode or barometer mode. And you can see there's a little underline underneath baro. That tells you what mode I'm in. When it switches, or I switch it to altimeter mode, then it will be under Alti there. And then what you see here is a trend over time. This tells you the current reading. And then you've got some more options down here for viewing. So let me go through those real quick. So you have the blank. You have the current temperature, which is only accurate if you're not wearing the watch. So, hang it from something or set it on the nightstand or something like that. You'll get an accurate temperature. But if you're wearing it, you will not. A logging function. You can see now I have a button enabled here, which will start the log. And I will show you that. Now, interestingly enough, I'm in barometer mode, but I'm logging altimeter. So it's kind of interesting. The log only logs elevation changes, altitude changes. And it does absolutely nothing in this mode, but it does log. So you can log absolutely nothing. It's kind of interesting. Let me show you real quick what else I have here while we're logging. So the other thing we have is the reference altitude. I've set for my reference, basically it's an altitude lock, if you will, and my reference altitude is 135. I'll show you that here in a minute. And then also you can have the current time there. All right, so back to the log. Now I do have another button enabled over here, which is interesting because this is a split button. I can set lap times with this button. Now, it's a little bit odd. I can't do this in a standard stopwatch mode, but in the altimeter logging mode, I can set splits, which will give you different laps. So kind of an interesting thing. You could use it for lap timing as long as the, you couldn't do splits between like winners of a race that are seconds apart, right? Because as soon as you press the split button, everything else is frozen for a few seconds. It shows you a little bit of information about that last lap. So you're kind of stuck there for a little while. But I'll show you how you can get to that in a log. But if you wanted to, log laps that have nothing to do with anything other than time, you could certainly do something with that, although it's not ideal. So now I'm going to hit this to stop the logging, and I'll show you where to view that here in a minute. And by the way, it's not going to show us anything from an altitude perspective because we're in barometer mode, which will not show us any altitude changes. So that's that. Now, the last thing is the compass. And basically, you have to hold the watch flat, and then you can get a compass bearing. And now there's a couple different ways to view down here as well. I've got the time down there. You can view the actual cardinal direction, which is kind of nice. This is set for heading lock, and it's giving you directions. And the compass will time out after a period of time to preserve the battery. So you can always push the button here, and it will start the compass back up. And back to time. So let's say you wanted to, you're navigating, you've got a map, and you want to, go to 60 degrees. You can clearly, orientate the watch to where it's pointing 60 degrees and then walk that direction, traditional way. Alrighty, so let's say we wanted to navigate to something in the distance. We can use our, bearing lock mode. So let's say I'm pointing to something, out there, wherever that direction is. You can hit the start stop button. All right, so now I'm set. This tells you the direction you need to go. This gives you a little bit of information down here. But when I have the two arrows pointing together with the line, I'm headed straight towards the position I locked in. As I turn, I get further and further away. You can see that arrow is really long. It says, hey, turn left. You want to go this way. And you can continue to find your bearing. So as you're walking, every once in a while, you can check your direction, and it will tell you to turn left or turn right. That's pretty cool. That will continue to remain active. You can just get out of that mode by changing the views. So it will come back in anytime you go into that bearing mode there. And then anytime you want to change the bearing, let's say I want to go this way now, there's something at about 90 degrees I want to shoot for. I can just lock that in, and then now that's my new mode. And when I'm facing this way, it says, hey, you need to go right. You're going the wrong way. And then there we go. So I'll show you a little bit more about that. It's important that you set your compass properly for this to even be close. But at any rate, so, and then you press this again, you go back to the time. So one of the things I don't like about this particular watch is a few watches I'm checking out right now to see which one I like the best, is in order to get to the time, I have to scroll through to get back to it. There are some watches that have a dedicated time button that you just press it and it resets back to the time, wherever you're at. This one you have to continue to scroll through. So if I'm at the barometer mode and I want to go check out, or I want to go back to time mode, I have to scroll past the compass. A little bit strange, but it is what it is. A couple more things on the display here that hopefully you can see. There's right up here, there's an arrow. This is the barometric pressure trend indicator, sort of a weather indicator. It's actually two lines. It tells you the trend. The fact that both lines are straight tells you that I've been on a fairly consistent pressure reading for a while, and you can kind of see that right here. A little bit of variance, but generally over the last 6 hours, it's been fairly consistent, not rising or falling. The manual is pretty good about showing how this works, but you know, if the arrow is pointing up, then the trend is rising. If the arrow is pointing down, the trend is falling. Have an alarm set. You can see that. If I had the profile set for automatic mode for the barometer or altimeter, it would say auto there. And then the only other thing you'll see is if you hold this button for 2 seconds, you can get a lock. That'll lock up all the buttons. And hold it again to release that lock. So that's all you're going to see on the display. Now the view mode down below will be different in altimeter versus barometer mode. But right now I'm in barometer, so I'll show you that. And here in a few minutes, I'll show you altimeter. So to get into the menu, you press and hold this side button, and it will take you into the menu. There are a couple things you can do in here, but more importantly, what we need to do is start with the setup. And these are basically where you're going to get into that. One interesting note, this is to escape, to get out of the menu entirely. And then you have another button down here, which is just to go back one. And then when you're in this options, these are up and down. So you've got an X here. So it's fairly intuitive. But if you get used to escape, back, up and down, that will start to make sense to you. And this is sort of the set button or return button or accept, or whatever the function is. Before I get too far into the menu, I will tell you, you can put the thing to sleep by holding all 4 buttons down. Goes to sleep. You can press that left button and then press it again and hold it. And then that will take you into sort of a place where you can do some bad things. I did play with contrast a little bit. I have mine currently set at 7. I try to get it as much contrast as I can, and 7 was the setting that was right for me. But if I change that, you can see it gets really hard to read. And if I go above 7, I start getting artifacts in the display, and it gets actually hard to read when you get higher. So turns out 7 is about right for this watch for me, and I imagine most all of them are probably about the same. So just so you know how to do that. And then you can see what version. Don't know what you're going to do with it, but hey, there you go. It is there. All right, so you can get back out of that. All right, so back into the menu. All right, so memories where we're going to look at logs and things like that. We'll do that here in a minute. The first thing we're going to do is set time and date. Alarm. I have an alarm set for 5 a.m. Another bummer, only one alarm on this watch. Kind of stinks, but it is what it is. and you make those adjustments on or off. With that, hit this button here to change modes to set the time, and then these are the up and down buttons. Okay, pretty good. Countdown timer, this is where you set your countdown timer. Mine's for 1 minute 30 seconds. I use it for coffee every morning, and that's how long I let my coffee steep. But you can change that again, just simply up and down, and then changing the mode. Okay. All right. Time. Obviously, this is where you would set your time. Pretty easy. Dual time. This is where you set an alternative time zone. Mine is set right now for, as I said, Zulu time or GMT. So if you need to figure out what time zone you want to set it to, you can check timeanddate.com or something like that, and then it will display an alternative time zone. And then date. Last, set the year, and then the month, and then the day. And I'll show you how to set how that's displayed. So that's what you're doing with the time setting. I'm going to go back. Next is sunrise. This is where you set your location. USA, Eastern, Washington, D.C. is the closest place to me. You want to set something that's close to you north and south. The more inline north and south, the more accurate it's going to be. Okay. Altimeter, barometer. This is where you set your reference. Now, with your reference, you can set either an altitude reference or a sea level reference. And I'll show you where I go to do that. I generally set an altitude reference. So I get my current altitude as close as I can, and I set it in there, and then that adjusts my reference. Alternatively, I can go get a sea level reading, and I'll show you where to find that as well, and I can plug that in there. If I change my sea level reading, it's going to change the altitude reference. They are connected to one another. You only have one reference option, and that reference is used then to establish the offset between your current atmospheric barometric pressure and relative to sea level. So and your altitude, basically, if you didn't know this, altitude is based off barometric pressure. It's how airplanes measure altitude in the sky, barometric pressure. So by the way, if you let it sit for too long, it will leave the menu. No problem. We go right back in. So back to altimeter, barometer reference, set the altitude. If I set this for 135 feet, then that is my new reference, and my sea level reading is set based off of that information. So you can set either one of these. You can go back and forth. It's not going to affect anything. I've heard people say, don't mess with sea level, only set altitude. It doesn't really matter. Set the one that is most accurate to you, and I'll show you how to find accurate sea level readings if you want, or use accurate altitude. Doesn't really matter. All right, what else? That's it. So that's the reference. I can hit the back button and profile. So profile you can set to barometer, altimeter, depth meter, or automatic. Automatic will automatically try and figure out how to bounce back and forth between the two. That's okay, I guess, if you're hiking by day and camping at night. It'll kind of go back and forth between modes. Barometer is what I leave it in because I don't really care right now about my altitude. I'm just, going to work and home and, around town. So I'm more interested in weather trending and, looking at that kind of stuff. If I set it to altimeter, it will just associate every barometric pressure change with change in elevation. So that's good if you're hiking or, something like that. Depth meter is good if you want to go snorkeling. It's got a limited range, not very much at all, but it will help you track, how deep you're diving when you're snorkeling. So I'm going to put mine on altimeter this time, so I can show you later on what that changes in the view window. Storm alarm is basically an on or an off. And I have it on. I've never seen it go off yet, but it will, I'm sure, eventually. All right, go back. Compass. You need to set your declination. This is not accurate until you've done that. I'll show you how to do that. Okay. And that really is all you need to do in there. General is where you set your button tones. My beeps are off right now. That's on. It'll beep every time you touch a button. That's annoying. Tone guides is on. That will do a tone anytime you make a major change or start your stopwatch or things like that. I kind of like that. I think that's handy. Backlight, this is where you set it to any button or light button. Right now mine's any button. And language is where you can set it to English, Spanish, French, or German. I'm going to stick with English so I know what I'm doing. Units. Time you can set for 24-hour or 12-hour. Mine's 24-hour time. Date you can set for month, day, or day, month. And temperature, Celsius or Fahrenheit. Air pressure, go HPA or inches. I don't remember what that stands for. It doesn't really matter. You can go with either one. If you're a pilot, you're probably going to go with inches. If you're anybody else, you're probably going to go with this HPA, which is actually the same thing as millibars. And then altitude, you can do feet or meters. Okay, back. And there we go. That's pretty much all of your setup. Now, I told you I'd show you what was different in altimeter mode, and you can see now the line is under altimeter. So I'm going to go to that mode, and you can see now it's showing my current elevation above sea level. There's an altimeter difference measure. So if I enable this, now it will basically keep track of my difference from the time I started tracking it. So it just dropped 3 feet. That's because, barometric pressure, plus or minus, give or take. Plus I'm indoors, so you can expect a little bit of change here and there, a little fluctuation. That's normal. And then you can stop it and basically see what your range. So if you're climbing something specific and you want to see how high you're climbing, you can do it like that. Additionally, your temperature is there again. You've got your log. This time with the log, I'm going to start it. Because it's in altimeter mode, it's actually logging something of value. So I'll let that run here for a second. So this is while you're in logging mode, you can see the difference between your start elevation. So I'm starting at 148 feet. It's 0. So as you're moving, it will show you up or down how you differ in elevation from that. This is your overall difference in elevation, up or down, and then this is back to that original log. Now that log, the accumulative is a separate log function. You can have it independent of this actual log. This log is recording into the log that you can go view later on in your memory. This other one, this one here is just viewed in this display, and when you're done, you're done. So that's that. So speaking of logs, let me show you how to go in there and look at that. Go into memory. So altimeter, barometer, this will show you a history, and you can scroll down. Every 30 minutes it logs. You can actually change that, and it will show you. Now, if it's in altimeter mode, it will show you your altitude. If it's in barometer mode, it will show you barometric pressure. So it just depends on what mode you're in at the time that it's doing the recording. Then we have the logbook. My logbook is empty. I need to go back and close out that one log that we're doing. There we go. It will not log anything until you've actually stopped the logging. Okay, so now I have a log from 8:36 p.m. on 12/29. I can view it, and you can see as I'm sitting here, I've had a little bit of just fluctuation, but that's about it. And there's some information, how long, what your scent was. That's that. You can view it. You can lock them if you don't want to overwrite. Otherwise, it will just keep the most current ones. I don't remember how much. And lastly here, if I back out, here's where you set your record interval, which by default is at 30 seconds, and it tells you how much recording space you have, 16 hours left of recording at that interval. And as I change the interval, 10 seconds, more data, less time. So there's a balance there. All right, so I told you I was going to show you a little bit about how to get the information you need for setup. All right, so for elevation, you can go to adaptlogic.com, sandbox, Google Maps, find altitude, or just do a search for Google Altitude Finder. You can put in an address, you can put in an airport, you can put in a city, state, whatever. Point being is that once you're in the Google Maps, you can click around and it will give you right down here the altitude of the last point clicked. So it's standard Google Maps. Let's say you live right here on Magellan Road. You can just click, boom, get your altitude, plug it into your reference for altitude. Okay. Now, the other way you might be able to do this, if you like reading topo maps, you can go to the maps.google.com gallery. I don't even know how I got here. Google topographic maps. And it's pretty cool because you can drill down to an address or a location and get a real, honest to goodness topo map out of it. So you can scroll down. Now let's go back to BWI. And you can see how it's overlaying topographical data. So the further you zoom in, the longer it takes to load. But it's some pretty good detail here. So if you're good at reading topo maps and you want to get really specific, you can try that as well. So that's another thing. All right, if you want to know for time zone stuff, you can go to timeandday.com and get a reference there. So I did a search here for UTC, but if you just want to figure out what the time zone is for Alberta, Canada, you can just plug it in and it will tell you the current time there, and then you can set your watch accordingly. All right, so that should help you. Another thing is for your declination offset, you need to go to ngdc.noaa.gov. Anyway, you can do a Google search for NOAA declination. There's a little link here you can calculate. And you can put in a zip code, and it will plug in the Latin Lange for you, and then you can do a calculation here. Or if you know the Latin Lange of your specific location, you just kind of have to get close. These are, not too granular. And then you can use either model, WMM or IGRF. Hit calculate, and it will tell you your declination. You will go plug that in on your watch as close as you can. So I don't remember if it will let you do degrees and minutes or just degrees. So if I was doing 11.6, I would do 12 W. You got to pay attention to this W or E, depending on where you're at. So keep that in mind. So that's how you'd set your, figure out your declination. And the last thing is the way to set your sea level reference. I usually go to weather.gov, and then what you can do is put in your zip code or address, 21090. Again, we're just getting to the Baltimore, Washington airport area. So it will show you um, the location that you find, and then what I do is go to more local weather, more local WX, and it will show you all of the weather reporting locations near you. You can pick which one is closest to you. The closer, the better. But there's BWI, there's Annapolis, Camp Spring, Patuxent River, Baltimore, Maryland, Baltimore Inner Harbor, Salisbury. So figure out which one is the closest to you. You can plug in your pressure in inches right here. This is as of 1954. They update these every hour. So this was updated. It's actually getting ready to be updated here in just a few minutes. So you can put that in there. If you want millibars, you can come in here and look at the more detail. It will show you both in inches and in millibars, depending on how you have your settings. It will also show you your trending. So what I've done to check the accuracy on my watch is I'll go back in time and compare what the watch is showing versus what this is showing, and it's been pretty accurate, actually really accurate, surprisingly accurate. And if you remember when I showed you my watch's trend pattern, I was showing it was a flat. Two flat bars showing a stable pattern, and you can see that same thing here. It hasn't really changed a whole lot over the last day or so. So anyway, that is it. That is the Suunto Core. A longer video than I expected, but there was a lot of information that I wanted to find in other people's videos, and I had to watch a whole bunch of them to get all of that information. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do one that's got as much of it as I can cram into it. So hopefully that's helpful for you. It really is a cool watch. Don't forget to go online. You can get the user manual and read about all this stuff. They do some really cool real-life situations which help provide application to what you're seeing with the watch. But it really is a cool watch. And probably the last thing I'll mention, which I didn't mention earlier, is the fact that the battery is easily accessible to change out as just a regular user, which isn't always the case on these watches. So no screws to undo. You can take a quarter or a coin of some sort and just open up the back and put in a new battery. It's a standard battery you can get just about anywhere. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.